What's up, everyone? Aaron Negler here, Cheesehead TV, talking football with Andy Herman, the Don of the Pack a Day podcast and producer of Packers content extraordinaire throughout the Packers universe. Andy, how the hell are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I liked that was an enjoyable game yesterday. I love the snippet that you posted about Matt LaFleur on Twitter yesterday. I was ready to run through a freaking brick wall after that.
Absolutely.
I'm so impressed with him, man. Yeah, I'm doing great.
It's funny how, let's start with Matt, because it is interesting. Every Monday, as the NFL media spheres want to do, it's all about the MVP race and offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year. You get the checklist, right? And then
Yep.
you get to coach of the year. And LaFleur is so very rarely mentioned as a front runner. It's
Yeah.
always kind of an add-on and or honorable mention. And I guess I'm not surprised because obviously he gets quote unquote dinged in the eyes of the national media because he has Aaron Rodgers. But I think this team is so much more than just the offense and Aaron Rodgers.
It feels like I don't want to say the media because I don't think that's fair, but it seems like everyone wants to have their cake and eat it too. When they say, well, Aaron Rodgers wasn't good, but then,
Right.
so they don't give Matt LaFleur the credit for, I think, really maybe revitalizing the wrong word for Aaron Rodgers, but really getting him back to his MVP level. They don't want to give him credit for that, but they wanted to say, he wasn't great before. And then they don't want to give him the credit now because they have Aaron Rodgers. So it's like they want both sides of it, which isn't totally fair. And I'm with you. I don't know what more you want from the guy. I think he does phenomenal with the media. You can tell the team has 100% buy-in. The offense is spectacular. He's built a system. He's built a culture. He's done everything other than maybe, this year, some second half adjustments that have done him in, like the Colts game and some things like that. And then just the weird one-offs where like Tampa this year and Minnesota this year, where they're just coming out flat a couple times, which is almost inexplicable. Other than a couple minor blips in the radar, I don't know what more you wanted. He's been fantastic.
And I think it's, a complete team thing. You talk about buy-in. It's funny hearing that clip where he's talking about MVS. I mean, that permeates throughout the football team.
Yeah.
You can see it on defense. You can see it on offense. Special teams is obviously going to be a bit of a bugaboo here for the next couple of weeks, I would think, simply because you can't give up 2 punt returns in 1 year for a touchdown. I mean, it happens once. That's pretty egregious. To have it happen twice in the span of a month, I know it's not as simple as, okay, J.K. Scott needs to be better and or Sean Menenga needs to be better, but the entire operation when it comes to punting away the football clearly needs, if not an overhaul, then at least a good kind of going over. Because, again, another punt straight down the middle of the field, giving, the returner way, way too much room to operate and the entirety of the field in front of him. I just think it's a problem that you can't ignore. And, I thought Bill Huber made a great point last night when he asked Matt about it, because he said, these are plays that are going to get you beat eventually.
Yep. And he's 100% spot on. And here's the thing. Literally nobody is asking them to be a great special teams. Like just status quo, like
competent.
I don't need any highs. I just don't give me any lows. Like I just get it to the 25, fair catch, no block punts, no punt returns for touchdowns.
Right.
I can survive. Like I am good with that. But like when you have not only the 2 punt returns for touchdowns, a blocked punt, a fumble on the kick return by Darius Shepard, another holding penalty on a punt return this week, a return, I forget how far that one was in this game.
Forever.
Exactly.
It was a long one. That's all I know.
So like all of it combined, even Mason Crosby missing an extra point, like the only saving grace is Crosby has not missed a field goal, knock on every piece of wood everywhere, everyone everywhere. But other than that, there's just nothing that you can hang your hat on at this point. And again, nobody's asking for spectacular, just as you said, competent. And it's nowhere near that right now.
And it's funny because I know Irvin got dinged up in the middle of the game, but that has nothing to do with coverage.
No.
People want to talk about the return game. I get it. And now they've got Tavon Austin possibly coming into the mix. We'll see what happens this week with Irvin's injury, etc. Let's talk about the offense, just because obviously it's the most fun. They're scoring tons of points. They're marching up and down the field. It was funny to see them have that bit of a lull, though, in the fourth quarter where it sure looked like Rodgers was just gunning it. Like all of a sudden it was like, okay, we're up and it doesn't matter. And we're going to throw it all over the yard. And then it got to be a 1-score game. And then they kind of tightened up a little bit there and they had the 3 and out. And you thought, wait a second. And then, of course, Jones busts the huge run. But for the most part, other than that little sequence, this is a team that I just feel like I said this on Watch Party. I said it again on Daily this morning, and I'm going to say it again here. It's the best I've felt about a Packers offense since 1996, in the sense of there's really no one who can stop them. They will stop themselves, and maybe they'll play into somebody's strengths. But again, that's more them beating themselves. I never worry when the offense is on the field. I know they're going to figure it out. I know they've got answers to the questions almost all the time. And it's just the weirdest kind of out of body feeling when I'm watching the offense operate.
They're great, and the system's great, the scheme's great, and the execution's great. I thought the Aaron Jones run was just a perfect example of that, as Matt LaFleur talked about as well. It was all 11 on that play, whether it was David Bakhtiari hustling down the field, even Davante Adams. MVS had like 3 blocks on the play.
In one play, right?
Like 30 yards downfield looking for blocks. Like the backside tight ends were blocking, right? Like just all of it. It was gorgeous. It was perfect. And then Aaron Jones doing stuff individually as well. But to your point from earlier about them beating themselves, you look, there were 4 3-and-outs in this game, which is, at least worth mentioning.
Yep.
But you look at it,
including the first series.
The first series, it's them shooting themselves in the foot, the Aaron Jones drop, and then the sack by Lucas Patrick.
Exactly.
Then there was a one with a delay of game penalty that he set things back and put them in second and long. And then there was another one where MVS dropped the deep ball down the field. Right. 3 of the 4 3-and-outs in this game were just self-inflicted wounds. It wasn't anything that Philadelphia did. There was one defensive drive where you tip your cap to Philly because Green Bay just, didn't execute, but Philly stopped them. They played great, but only one of the 4 times did Philly actually stop them. It was Green Bay stopping themselves when they did. So I'm with you there.
It is interesting too. You mentioned because I asked Matt, that was the last question I got in on the press conference last night about starting off the way they did. You have the fumble and then you get beat for a sack, and it's like, guys, where's the focus? But Matt made a great point. It's like, they don't need me to say anything. And I thought that was telling. Again, that's a style of leadership. That's the idea of how do you communicate with your guys? When do you push? When do you pull? When do you kind of hang back? But it was interesting in the sense of their ability to be so kind of dynamic and multiple, being able to kill you any which way. The sense that, look, there's no doubt that Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams are extremely special. We all know this. But what's funny to me is that how Aaron Jones has almost been forgotten. And he still obviously came to the rescue last night with a huge 77-yard run. But it's like teams are going to have to start just selling out to stop Davante. And when that happens, you can already tell it's like, okay, we'll just wait until somebody does that, and then we'll unleash Aaron Jones. Because until then, why give him wear and tear? Why run him into the ground? I think he creates every time he touches the ball, even when stuff isn't there. You saw, I thought, a number of times where Philly took away everything as far as how it's drawn up, and Aaron Jones still created positive plays.
Jones was fantastic in that game. Like every single run, he finished getting extra yards than he should have on the play.
The old falling forward thing, always moving forward. Yeah.
And it just it was so impressive. I thought there was the one play where he runs straight and there's like a block of people and he just runs in, bounces back, moves to the outside. There's another play where he stiff arms 2 people to the sidelines. And then of course the 77-yarder made a couple of people miss as well. So, but the crazy thing is I'm right there with you. I think if teams start taking away Davante Adams and doubling him and keeping things open, they're going to check to other things and they're going to get Aaron Jones more involved. And I think they've done a nice job making sure that neither Jones or Williams are run into the ground. Both of them have had, basically split type carry situations. But I almost wanted to ask, like, as a adamant Madden player early in my time, there are many people out there, when your passing game is going, the last thing you want to do is call a running play. Like as an offensive coordinator, when Aaron is locked in like that,
I know, right?
And when Davante is uncoverable and Alan Lazard's, contributing and all those things are just working. Tunyon is playing great. Like, how the hell do you call a run play in those situations? Because it didn't seem like Philly had any chance of stopping any of the pass plays they called. So I thought he did a good job of mixing it in and sprinkling it in, but I'm not so sure I would have wanted to call too many run plays either yesterday.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, especially as well as they were holding up against a really good Eagles front. What did you think of the decision to kick Billy Turner inside and go with Wagner at tackle rather than, I think, what a lot of people assumed, I know I did, that they would put Runyon in there at left guard when they kicked in Elton Jenkins? Were you surprised by that?
I was surprised because I think, like you, everyone just expected it to be John Runyon, but Matt LaFleur made some off comment of they were still working through a couple things. Like I want to say it was like Tuesday last week, or maybe it was Monday or Wednesday, one of the two. But He made some off comment. And the only reason I thought that maybe there could be a difference is because there is a difference in game. If you have to switch 4 people's positions in game, because that's what they would have had to do last week if they wanted to put Wagner in, because then Jenkins has got to go to center, Patrick has to go to guard, Turner has to go to guard, and then Wagner comes in at right tackle, and only Bakhtiari's in the same spot. But when you have a full week to prep for that,
that's a good point.
I can see where maybe you make the decision. And listen, the Eagles one group on this team that has the ability to beat you is their defensive line. It's literally the only thing that has the ability to beat the Green Bay.
It's literally what kept them in the game against Seattle.
Exactly.
Like that's the only reason they were in that game.
Go with your veterans. Go with the guys that you trust out there. Maybe don't put a rookie in a position to get Fletcher Cox one-on-one on multiple situations. And I think in hindsight, it makes a ton of sense that they went that way.
Yeah, and it's funny because Matt mentioned the success that Billy had last year against the Philly front, and it's something I never really thought of. And it's funny because we think back to last year, and a lot of kind of the narrative around Billy Turner was how much he quote unquote struggled. But you go back and you watch that game, and it's like from that week 4 game last year, and that was still early in the season when the jury was still very much out on Billy. But it's true, like he held up pretty damn well. And those are the things that like these are what the coaches get paid for. It's like one of those moments where you're like, that's right. They are scouring every nook and cranny of what they have available, how they think it matches up, and deciding which way to go. Speaking of which way to go, were you surprised that well, I'll just put it real simple. Were you as shocked as I was about the deep shot call out of the end zone? Obviously the throw and the catch are both absolutely fucking amazing, but just the chutzpah to make that call against, again, a really good defensive front was pretty damn impressive to me.
Was it Favre to Robert Brooks on the 99-yarder in Chicago?
That was in Chicago. That was a slant play, though. But
that was totally different. But so a little bit. But you love seeing that type of aggressiveness, and I just don't think that Matt LaFleur is afraid of any given play at any given moment. And I think he's proven that over and over. Whether it's a 4th and 1 and he's throwing the 4th and inches and he's throwing the football, whether it's throwing from literally Aaron Rodgers' heels almost being out of the end line in the back of the end zone, like he just does not care, and he's not going to be scared. And I love it. I love every second of it. I love the aggressiveness, and Aaron Rodgers' answer to it. Was it you that asked the question?
Yeah, about that. I asked if he lobbied for it, and he said he okayed it. He was all in on it.
He's like, yeah.
I like that one. Of course, can't talk about the Packers, not talk about the defense. So, okay, here we go. It's funny too, because they only allowed, the defense itself only allowed 10 points, and you go, there's all sorts of hand wringing each and every game because there are always seemingly a handful of plays that drive you insane. None more so than 4th and flipping 18. What is it about 4th downs and the Eagles that the Packers just can't get past? But it's funny because I watch that game in the moment and I get beyond frustrated, even though I also noted during watch party how maybe not totally different, but it was very noticeable how much more press they played, especially early on in the game. And I think, Jair, that plays to his strengths. I think it plays to Kevin King's strengths, although we did see him get beat once or twice. But yeah, outside of like the handful of plays that make you tear your hair out, I thought the defense actually had a pretty good all-around game, especially rushing the passer.
Well, if you take this game out of context, and let's just say this was like the first game of the 2020 season, and there's no other context around it.
Right.
You look at this game in and of itself, you would say, great game. They made one mistake on defense. The other was the special teams play, and you love this game from the defense. What's so frustrating is that this is not the first time that this has happened.
Exactly.
And it's those sort of things. And I kind of mentioned in the podcast yesterday, it's like this Packers team, it's like a Mortal Kombat where the opposing player is just stunned and it says finish come across the screen and they don't know how to do the finishing.
I said that in gut reactions.
Oh, that's
the lack of a killer instinct.
Yeah, they just don't know how to just finalize it and just end it. And it's like they got
the on the throat.
Working back to health while you're just trying to sit there figuring out how to finish them.
What? No, it's the line from Swingers. You don't know how to kill the bunny. You're just like you're just playing with it. You're not hurting it. You're just playing with it. You got these fucking claws. Like the Packers just don't know how to do it. Yeah. But here's the thing. Like last year, going back and watching that game, Carson Wentz avoided 3 would-be sacks by having places to step up, by having escape routes. Those were all gone yesterday. Yeah. And I obviously don't think that was the only reason he got benched. Obviously, production matters, etc. But I thought the Packers' defensive front, the defensive line in particular, took away pretty much every escape route that offered itself up last year. This year, I thought Clark, Kiki, and even, yes, Dean Lowry did a much better job as far as creating that wall where he had no place to step up because you kept seeing the pocket get kind of restricted and constricted, and all of a sudden he would try and step up and there was nowhere to go.
And I mentioned that too on Twitter yesterday. I love individual sacks when somebody just gets clean and wins clean. That's great. But when you see four guys just collapsing that pocket and, really it just is closing in on the quarterback. I mean, I can't even imagine how that must feel as a quarterback when it's literally collapsing.
Nowhere to go.
And there were so many of those yesterday. And I thought the defense did, like you said, a really great job of that. Kingsley Kiki, I thought, stepped up a couple different times. He had 2 sacks, obviously, on the day, but you could see him making some, flash plays. Dean Lowry, somewhat surprisingly, I thought he graded well the last couple weeks, and then it seemed like he had another nice grade this week. So I'm really excited that some of these guys are really starting to put it together. And then there was the note from Zadarius Smith in his presser that some of the guys went to Mike Pettin and said they wanted to be a little bit more aggressive and they wanted to be able to get after the quarterback more. The thing I love about that is when you have an open door and you're willing to listen to guys and implement some of the things that they want to do, it gives those guys buy-in. Because now, okay,
ownership of it.
Your idea now. So now, okay, we're going to run what you want to do. All right, you better kick ass.
Produce.
Okay,
exactly.
Yeah, you better produce. And I thought you could see from Clark and Preston and Z and just that whole front, they were bought in, they were energetic, and I think they really wanted to prove out and say, you know what, you're going to listen to me. I'm going to go out and prove that we can do this. So I thought.
I agree with that. And it's funny to hear because Matt was asked about that. I think Ryan Wood asked him. I can't remember for sure, but about Zadarius saying that. And Matt was like, it was fine. I thought Matt would go instantly to, well, it's the best idea in the room is the best idea and blah, blah, blah. But he was really not standoffish about it. But he said, I'm not always going to do what you want. I'm not always going to listen. Right. I may, let you in and talk to you or whatever. And I want guys to feel comfortable in the sense of being able to say, hey, I think we should try this or we'd be better doing this, etc. He was very clear that I'm not always going to do what you ask. Right. I am still the coach. And I love that. I mean, that's a guy saying like, look, man, this ain't a democracy. Like this is still my shop. So, okay, we got the Packers coming up now against the Lions, who had a bit of an offensive explosion against the Chicago Bears.
Yep.
Do we think the firing of Patricia may have, maybe provided a galvanizing moment, to borrow a phrase from Aaron Rodgers, for the Detroit Lions?
It certainly didn't seem to hurt, and I'm kind of upset that the Packers miss out on another matchup with Patricia. They already did go against Bill O'Brien. Both of those games became exponentially harder because the teams wanted to fire their coach ahead of time. Although to be fair, up until I think Patricia's only team that he beat in the NFC North was the Packers. So, but
I think those came under Mike McCarthy. So.
That very well could be. Yeah, it must be because he
led LaFleur all 60 minutes of both games last year, but lost both.
I lost at the end. That's right. And yeah, so who knows? But I definitely think that they, put up a really nice offensive performance, came up big at the end against the Bears. I think winning in the final moments, and it was kind of a choke job by the Bears, which you don't necessarily mind seeing happen. But I was kind of hoping maybe for a Bears win in that one. Yeah, I really think they're so close with Trubisky and Nagy. Like they're just so close.
They got to sign those guys for the next 5 years.
I don't think you can really eliminate them based on this line.
Guys, I know Chicago Bears front office. They're a big. The McCaskies are huge Cheesehead TV fans. They watch every week. So just a shout out to you guys. But Andy and I are in agreement here. Just keep Nagy and Trubisky around for a few more years. Andy, can't thank you enough for joining me each and every day after the game. I love it. It's always a highlight of the week. Please make sure you check out Andy at the Pack a Day podcast and Packer Report and everywhere else that the name Packers and football and intelligence appears online. Andy, thanks so much, buddy. I'll talk to you next week.
Appreciate it. Can't wait.